Good evening, everyone. He's a Chicago cop who may have used his badge to get sex.
The charge comes tonight from 3 different women who told their story to one reporter, Pam Zeckman.
David Tracy, the story these women tell are backed up in part by court records. All were arrested in an apparent sting on escort services. Later, they say, one of the cops gave them a choice: have sex with him or go to jail. A provocative dance, private parties and escort services advertising their services for a fee, some crossing the line into prostitution. It's a seedy world targeted for periodic crackdowns by the police. But now a cop assigned to one of those crackdowns is accused of using his position for his own sexual gratification. Allegations made by these 3 women.
He used his badge in order to intimidate us and to terrorize us.
He wants to use his position of power to get him sex.
I was his sex slave literally for the night.
You were what?
A sex slave.
They're talking about a policeman at the 18th District here on the North Side, Eugene Jennings, who apparently set up a sting by calling several escort services that advertise in this guide. The 5 women who showed up at this motel on Saturday, January 6th, were all arrested. Their court files show that Jennings said they all agreed to perform acts of sex for money. But Nicole Tate says she's an exotic dancer who agreed only to do a show for $150.
The sum total that I was going to be paid for was dancing.
No prostitution.
No prostitution.
And Robin Lance on the left says on that night she only drove her associate, Olivia, to the motel. But they say the officer insisted that they could all be charged with soliciting for prostitution.
And he kept saying that he controlled everything, that he had the power to turn our charges from misdemeanors to felonies.
Then the women say that Officer Jennings interviewed each of them alone in a room here at the police station. That's when they say the police officer did things and said things to let them know he'd go easier on them if they had sex with him. Robin refused.
Well, in my opinion, he was going to use us as toys, like play toys, and I'm no one's play toy.
Neither was Nicole.
I wasn't going to give him sex or let him see my body and degrade me more than I'd already been degraded.
Nicole and Robin believe that because they turned the officer down, they were transferred to central booking and locked up for 13 hours.
From roughly 11 p.m. Saturday night until 12 p.m. Sunday afternoon.
But court records show that Olivia and another woman were released at 10 the night before from the 18th District. Released, says 19-year-old Olivia, because they agreed to Jennings' demands.
He said, have sex with me.
Have sex
Not would you or could you. You have to have sex with me in order to get out of jail.
Were you scared?
I was devastated, petrified.
She says they spent the night in a room in this hotel with Officer Jennings.
We had just sex. Just sex, non-stop sex.
Interrupted briefly when the officer went out for food and liquor. Why didn't you leave?
Because my paperwork wasn't finished. No, it was hers. No telling what he would do.
What he apparently did with their paperwork was to cross out the criminal statute for soliciting prostitution and replace it with a less serious violation of a city ordinance prohibiting a tavern employee from soliciting patrons to buy drinks for them, a change I asked one of their attorneys about. It has nothing to do with what happened that night.
Yes. He followed through to the letter. He made it easy for these girls who did what he wanted to get off.
He has this prediction.
In a practical sense, is this going to cause the case to get thrown out of court?
The other girls still face the more serious charges that their attorneys will defend in court.
What this officer did was wrong. It was a violation of their fundamental civil rights. And it must be, it's got to be stopped.
He has been stopped for now. Police internal affairs investigators have found the women's charges credible enough to recommend temporary action be taken against Jennings.
This officer has been stripped of his police powers.
What does it mean for the public?
It means that his badge has been taken away, as well as his weapon and other police tools, and he is relegated largely to desk duty.
If formal charges are brought before the police board, Jennings could be suspended or fired. Jennings declined to be interviewed on camera, saying only in a telephone interview that the charges are not true. Tracy, David?
Thank you, Pam.